Sup peeps are the 2133 USA fam and anybody else that might come across this video. For today's video we'll talk about formations, specifically infantry formations for this one. The others would come soon after, but we'll start off with infantry formations. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, infantry isn't really something I find anybody should be attacking with too much, because it's more of a defensive kind of play style. But we get into some attacks, get into some defense ones, and so on and so on, and what different formations you might want to use for different troops. So this castle actually don't have infantry, so I had to switch to my secondary account. So when it comes to infantry, two things you always have to remember. One, what you're fighting, and two, how you're fighting. As for most of your troops anyway, that is what you always have to remember. But for infantry specifically, you have to know what you're fighting, and once you know what you're fighting, you know what you'd want to use. So a good infantry formation for mainly attacking castles or countering cav would mostly consist of paladins and savage warlords, so T13, T12 infantry. So a good formation you might want to be looking into is, let me say, 5 to 10% T14 dark, while you might want to use 15% and 95, but 15% Guardians of Farming, T14 light, and you might want to use something like around 50% T13 infantry. Well, my infantry don't go as far as 50%, but if it was to be 50%, it would be up to 70% of the match max out. And then after, for savage warlords, you might want to use something like 15% savage warlords and 15% footmen. Well, on this account I don't have much movement, but that is how an infantry attacking match would look like. But for a defensive match, for like, let me say, if you want to defend a throne, defend a castle, or even just use more defensive infantry in a match, so it will be much different than how it is. So for Woodbreaker executioners, they'll most likely either remain 5%, but if you want to add a little bit more, you could. So probably like around 7% to 10% of the match can be full out with them. As for Guardians of Farming you want to put that up to 25% actually. For T13 infantry, you would have a drastic drop, and you'd want to go with 25% as well. As for savage warlords, you would want to go full remaining 40% with it. Yeah, you would want to go the full remaining 40% with it, because, well, obviously it's a defensive match. But yeah, in terms of a defensive match, that is how it would look. As for a more low tier match, because obviously not everybody is going to have T14. T14 are a little expensive, and not everybody going to have half a million T14 all the time. So a more cheaper match that don't have T14 or T13 will most likely look a little bit out of point. More savage warlords and more folk men rather than having a having like obviously T13 and T14, because well it's a more cheaper match. So how that would look, you'll want to go 50% of the match with savage warlords. Do mine do mine if you have things like tough armor and razor units. You should split the numbers that you're seeing here for the regular unit up into in between them, so that you could get like evenly strength match. Because again, tough and razor very much helps a unit a lot. So yeah, you would want to go 50% savage warlords, while you would want to go 25% roadmen, and then you would want to go with something like 10%, 10% to 15% T10 infantry. Now, T10 infantry, you don't want to use too much on attack, because there's not really an attacking unit, so they're not going to really do an amazing job when it comes to attacking. So you wouldn't want to use too much of them as compared to the Savage Warlord. The Savage Warlord does a lot better on attack, but still not as good. So yeah, you would use 15% T10, and then you would use 10% T9 max all the match. That will give you a nice diverse match that would keep your troops alive, but will also give you the best possible damage as like a more cheaper match to use. As for the matches and purposes, the first one, which was the more attacking match, obviously I tell you how it works. If you want to attack a castle or attack a throne or anything really, you would use that match. Do mind though, when it comes to fighting archers and archer cav, do watch out for that, because you don't have as much shieldmen as the other matches, and because you don't have as much shieldmen as the other matches, your paladins will take a lot of damage unless if you have a lot of infantry health. If you have a lot of infantry health, well, you don't need to really worry too much about archers in general. Still watch out for siege. Siege will clear your match. There's no doubt about it. As for the more defensive match, try not to use it too much with siege, because if you have to use infantry against siege, you wouldn't want to have a shield wall, because if you have a shield wall, they are going to clear your match. Certain siege units get a buff from attacking heavily defensive infantry, so you'd want to kind of avoid using a lot of shields with siege when fighting siege players. And as for the more cheaper match, well, cheaper match is more of a versatile match. You could use it however you want. You could use it whenever you want, and honestly, really and truly, is just that one match that you could always rely on if you don't want to use your high tier units to fight. And as for heroes to use with those different matches, heroes you would want to obviously use for the more spear heavy match, which is the first match I was talking about. You'd want to use Roger. Roger has a boost in attack for paladins once you awaken Roger twice. Once you awaken Roger twice, Roger does get you could level up Roger to get a boost against Cav with paladins. So there's a skill here, your T2 paladins receive 6% damage from enemy Cav. aka it receive less damage from the enemy Cav, with the max being 30%. And then for this side, it is give them extra damage against Cav. So with that, you could basically clear carve. You could basically clear carve with Roger. As for a shield match, you'd want to more use Dobby because Dobby is more of a shield infantry commander uh, rather than a spear infantry. He does get big buffs for using shield infantry in general. Like here, increase attack and defense by 200% for all shield troops on your side at the start of the battle, which gives them a big bonus when it comes to attacking and defending in general. So you might want to use Dobby mainly when defending or attacking with a defensive heavy march. He also does get force moose, which the pikeman will turn the enemy calf charge to attack for sure, and the chance of counter any charge is 5%. I believe the max is 10. So yeah, does help a lot, but in general, it might just be better to use it with shield inventory. And as for the more cheaper match, you can go with anybody. It really doesn't matter too much. So yeah, it don't really have much of a big difference if you use it or if you don't use it. As for books is something that you had no way doing with infantry because if you don't have the proper book, then you could kind of screw yourself up. So as for the books, in terms of center skills, you would want to use for the hero side, you would want to either use the third page, the Book of Sanctuary, because it does give you an increased infantry damage with health, which will make it infantry a lot more stronger. As you can see from the start bonuses, you get at the last one you get 38% damage and 800% health, which is amazing for infantry. If you don't have the Book of Sanctuary and you have the Book of Shadows, which most likely by now everybody had the Book of Shadows, you would want to use the one by hero side for the Book of Shadows because it increases the shield soldier's attack by 170% when the battle starts and increase your pikeman damage against Cav by 25%. If you have to counter Cav, use this one. It works wonders against Cav. As for like things like the percentage is a decent percentage because again the 250% with the shield soldiers on the last tier, and you're getting 40% with the pikemen, which is good. As for when you're wearing it on arrays a little bit different because you can either use the Book of Shadows arrays, which gives shield soldiers a boost in defense when the battle starts, which if you check the percentage with the arrays is 400%. As for the Book of Ink Magic, you could use this one also for arrays. After shield soldier's attack, it will increase the basic defense of your own troops by 18%, which is good. The effect lasts until you take damage next time. So basically, it will boost after the shield soldier's attack. It will boost your march. It will boost your entire march basic defense. And when it boosted basic defense, the next time your march take damage, the effect goes away and then it repeats itself. It don't stack, and it does increase the probability of taunt, which if you have pikemen is an amazing thing. It will work wonders with pikemen and shield soldiers. Because I believe how it does work, the shield soldiers is attack before the pikemen. So the shield soldiers will attack, it will give them the defense, and then the pikemen will attack after them, which is great. As for things like dragons, it more or less depends on what you put what dragon as your focus. So it could be any dragon you want to use as long as you have good skills for that dragon. The dragon will work. I don't have an inventory dragon, so I don't have a setup that I could show you good on how you would want to set up an inventory dragon. So yeah, so I can't show all the infantry dragon at the moment because don't actually have an infantry dragon setup, but mainly would want to use receive damage, infantry health, all unit health, infantry defense, all unit defense, and attack. If you could fit offensive damage and offensive damage reduction in there, you fit it. As for your Garrison Dragon should have almost the exact same thing. It should have the exact same thing, with the main difference being that you either drop infantry defense for all unit attack or infantry health for all unit attack. But either way works the same way, doesn't really matter too much. As for a protector dragon should just have mainly all unit stats. Could actually show you that. So yeah, your protector dragon should have mainly all unit stuff and counter by stuff, because it's a protector dragon. The only time its stats will ever activate is when you're on defense of your castle, or you're in defense in arena, or you're in defense. If you're in defense in general, I believe the only things it does not work for is caravans and other special events, so like Dark Knight and stuff like that. So yeah, you basically still want to have a damage. So in this case I have cavalry damage, but is infantry we're talking about, so you would want to have infantry damage, obviously all unit defense health, counter by siege, counter siege, a counter cav, a receive damage, and you'd want to leave defensive damage and defensive damage reduction. Obviously you'd want to use this dragon as your protector dragon. It's the best protector dragon in the game. It's solely meant for that, so you'd want to use this dragon instead of any other dragon. But if you have to use any other dragon, the smartest dragon to use is the Fire Eagle, or if not the Fire Eagle, you could use the Fairy Dragon, because the Fairy Dragon does have defensive damage and defensive damage reduction by 50 and 30%, I believe it is. So with that being said, that brings it to the end of the video for infantry setups, formations, and heroes in general. Next video next video on infantry would most likely be things like gems and what gems they should use, civilizations, and what your main focus should be with these different things. So with that being said, that's the end of it. Hopefully you enjoy this one. Hopefully you learn something from this one, which is most important. You gotta learn, because if you ain't learn, then where's the sense? Where's the sense to even watch the video for, you know? But yeah, unless if you just want to hear my voice. So that being said, later peeps. See you in the next one.